Hey guys, welcome back to another Jurassic World live video. So today we're going to continue on with the tier list with what A tier it is right now. So by the way, for those of you who don't know, a small patch is coming out soon. Doesn't really change too much, honestly. I mean, there are some decent changes, but overall, not the biggest deal in the world. And as for the A tier, only one dino in the A tier got any changes, which is Tormalock, which probably isn't enough to warrant it to go up a tier, but it got better. So anyways, to get today with me, we got Temerity here again, and let's get through these then. Let's see, how many are there? 12 dinos in A tier. Okay, so we're gonna start this off with Allosaurus. So Allosaurus is pretty decent in this meta, actually. The meta is decently kind to Allosaurus. So let's go over the stats and stuff first. 4.5k health, 1.7k damage, 106 speed, 20% crit, 15% armor, defense shattering strike, armor piercing impact, defense shattering impact, and instant charge. So here's the thing with Allosaurus. Allosaurus can actually take a decent amount of hits in comparison to a lot of the other chompers, right? That you have at the same level. So that's mostly where it gets its clout from, right? The two impacts are nice. Also instant charge combo as well with a lot of that. I think the only real downside to Allosaurus, honestly, is just its speed. 106 speed kind of sucks, but then again, it does have instant charge, so it's not the biggest deal in the world, and it does have bulk, so there's that as well to combat the speed. But otherwise, you got some pretty fun matchups that you can play around with Allosaurus. So yeah, Tim, let's start this one off then. Allosaurus.
Yeah, I like Allosaurus a lot. The additional bulk in this meta is needed for chompers.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Rex is slightly better than Doradalosaur.
Mm-hmm.
The downside to Allosaurus, unlike other chompers, is that it doesn't have that rampage that it can go to when it needs to deal a
Mm-hmm.
lot of damage.
I mean, it still has a
I
lot of
think.
damage, 1.7k base with
Oh
impacts.
my God,
Again,
yeah.
still not doesn't have 2 times multiplier, but still a lot.
Like 2,500 damage is nothing to sneeze at. Like you said, the 106 speed, that basically means that it's going to lose to the main meta chompers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, them and then like anything that's around that 108, 110 speed normally beats it. And then you obviously you got the speedsters that can distract that will struggle too. But unfortunately for it, it's going to be going up against more like
Mm-hmm.
Stagod, Tragod, and all those style dinos to where it can just chomp down.
Yeah. So overall, Allosaurus, nice dino to use for the most part. Um, it is what it is, just a bulkier chomper, slightly slower, bulkier chomper, and doesn't have as much burst damage, but with the bulk, in many scenarios could potentially put up more cumulative damage just because of the bulk. So, anyways, moving on. Next one, Ardontosaurus, the pre hybrid version of the absolute monster that is Ardentis Maxima, which, by the way, for some reason, got another buff in 1.10. Which I don't want to call it 1.10 because that's really weird. That's not really how decimals work, but oh well.
2.9.
Anyways, Ardontosaurus. So this thing's interesting. 5.1k health, 1.2k damage, 108 speed, 20% crit, with definite strike, decel impact, defense shatter rampage, instant invincibility, and immunity. So overall, really, really interesting kit. Decent stats as well. Like the damage, 1.2k for something with that much health is really, really nice. Honestly, like I guess my only issue with Ardontosaurus is it dies way too easily. Like sure, it has 5.1k health, but no armor, and aside from instant invincibility, it doesn't have like a secondary shield that could also do some damage or whatever, and lasts for more than one turn. But yeah, otherwise, like it just does a lot of damage for how much HP it has. But I mean, here's the thing. I always compare Ardontosaurus to a lot of the Chompers because, like, a lot of the Chompers are, like, 4.5k HP plus anyways, which, you know, you're what? 500, 600 HP short from Ardontosaurus. But they have, like, a 1.8k or 1.7k or at least 1.6k plus damage. And, you know, same thing with the crit. They have around the similar speed as well. Ardontosaurus, however, does have immunity, which is huge. Also has that invisibility and decel, which not a lot of the other chompers do. Like, honestly, I really would much more compare Ardontosaurus to a you know, a bulkier chomper than say any of the other tanks, because, like, come on, no other tank, well, not a lot of tanks in this game really have this much damage output with no armor. So, Tim, Ardont.
Yeah, it's a really good dino to have in the early games. It's a I want to say a poor man's Maxima.
Mm-hmm.
Because it basically mirrors exactly what Maxima is, but on a little smaller scale. It has quite a bit less HP. It has less crit, less damage overall. But I mean, it what it does is basically the same as what Maxima's gonna do. Um, but it's a really solid tank to have in the beginning. It'd be one of my favorite tanks to start out with, that's for sure. Um, and then it has good synergy with it being bulky and immune. Um, but I mean, it's a good dino overall. The 108 speed kind of hurts it a bit because
Yeah.
being a legendary, it loses those matchups that it needs to beat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
On the other hand, it does have decel and it is immune. So if you really, really want that speed advantage, and I guess you could potentially still get it, but then again, you know, that's a turn, right? But anyways, there we go. Ardontosaurus. Moving on. Third one we got Dilorano. Dilorano. I mean, it's interesting. Again, I say this every time. It's really similar to Uterine X. Honestly, for the most part, you know, it's bulk, it's damage, all that stuff. It's kit. And again, it suffers the same fate with like stuff like Uterinax, Dilorkyrus and stuff. The meta just kind of hates it. I mean, overall, if you put it in a vacuum, it's pretty good for what it is if you put it in a vacuum. But you know, we're not doing that. In this meta, it just gets screwed over a lot. You know, all the more tanky, slower meta, plus the all these new immunes and stuff, and like 126 still, it just doesn't cut it for me anymore. So that's why it got pushed down a bit over here. So yeah, unfortunate. It's my favorite hybrid in the game, but what can you do? Anyways, Tim.
yeah, you pretty much hit it right on the head on that one. It's suffering the same exact fate as its super hybrid. The meta is just it's not liking it. It's either immune, which is basically its entire kit gone. Um, and then it doesn't have that damage output because its damage is kind of average. To go along with the decent speed. I mean, it has the bulk
Mm-hmm.
to survive some turns, but the bulk doesn't really matter that much if the meta is going to be tanky and immune to all of its moves.
Right. So. Well,
But
mm-hmm.
it does have decent team synergy. You can combine it with Dracosera or um Thylacotator, Smilosev, any one of them. So it does have that going for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, it is what it is. It still does what it does. I mean, you come in 126. Usually, you're looking for a revenge kill, and I do have to say this. It is. You know what? I don't know if it's a better revenge kill than Dilorkyrus or not, because it does more damage on turn one, which is good for a revenge killer. But it is slightly slower. So it really depends on it's much more matchup reliant than Dollar Cars is. So who knows? Anyways, moving on. Indominus Rex, the Gen 1, which is not better than Gen 2. Let's just put that out there. It's not better than Gen 2. Okay, so Indominus Rex, 4.5k health, 1.6k damage, 107 speed, 20% crit, no armor, armor piercing strike, armor piercing impact, armor piercing rampage, got all the armor piercing moves, and then a cloak and immunity. So my take on Indom is essentially still the same. It gets stopped by tanks, obviously, and it has a really, really good chance of killing a lot of the speedsters, which, again, not not so much the meta at the moment, so thus why it's not as relevant. But, if you need something to take out speedsters, you could throw this in if you don't have any better tanks or whatever, right? And, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, it's the speed kind of sucks, 107. And also one more thing, the nullifiers that we got from last patch. So again, still does what it does decently well. Cloak, rampage, takes out something that doesn't have shield up, and then just dies. So, well, that's my take on Indom.
Yeah, it does get a slight buff in this upcoming patch with the 75% chance to dodge.
Mm-hmm.
But I see Indominus really being more of an opener.
Yeah.
Since a lot of the bulkier dinos come in at the end of the game to do a cleanup job. You don't want Indominus to go up against that. So I can see Indominus really just being a extremely good opener. Get that first kill, maybe do some damage on the next dino or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The 107 speed hurts it a lot. Being that slower than like the Raja, Trico, Ardentis Maxima, anything with a shield really that it needs to be faster than, it's not. It does have good damage, and like you said, it relied on the speedster meta to be over the top, and unfortunately, that meta is kind of being pushed out of the way now.
Yeah. So, there you go. Poor Indom. Star of Jurassic World. Moving on. Megalosaurus. So this weird dino still around, I guess. So 4,440 health, 1,000 damage, 115 speed, 5% crit, definite strike, ferocious strike, fan shattering impact, short defense, and armor piercing counter. I'll let you start on this one, Tim. Megalosaurus.
All right.
Not Megalosaurus. Megalosaurus.
Uh, Megalosuchus, it over the patch, it's gotten slightly better, that's for sure. It being able to shatter shields, buff its damage output, and also being able to take damage as well. With the short defense. It's mainly meant for tanky meta,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, it does get that advantage right there, but it doesn't have, without any armor, that 4,400 HP just doesn't seem like it gets it done anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, it is a counter dino that can buff its own stat from 1,000 damage to 1,500. It does have fairly good speed at 115, so I mean, it could revenge kill, and then you'll have that buff for the upcoming battle. But other than that, it just does what it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, I really think Megalosaurus got much better in this patch just because how the meta slowed down a lot. It really, really helps Megalosaurus because like the biggest problem with Megalosaurus is it absolutely just gets obliterated in a speedster meta. But we're out of that right now, and with more slower dinos, you get more chances to revenge kill with this thing. And if you get a revenge kill, like either one, you set up Ferocious Strike or set up Short Defense, that's going to make Megalosaurus much, much more better. Like, if you get a setup turn on that, you either get like 3,000 damage a turn with Ferocious Strike, or you get a shield up. So, all in all, I think, Megalosaurus, I did think get better in this patch. just because of the meta, the slower meta, easier to set up, and again, a lot of damage. So fun stuff. I think it got much better in this patch than it was in the last. Anyways, moving on. What's next? Tera Vexes. Vexes. This thing. So Vexes 4,140 health, 1.2k damage, 129 speed, 5% crit, no armor, pinning strike, null impact, distracting impact, and swoop with swap and wound and immune. So Tim, want to start on this one again?
I definitely will. It it's an interesting because it kind of got hurt from the last patch with the a few of the things that would bleed getting immunity, but at the same time it gained a lot more team synergy.
Mm-hmm.
I can see this thing being almost like a thylacotator where you bring it in, you bleed down a chomper, um basically a support for uh one of the sauropods. Um it has immunity with a what 129 speed. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Mm-hmm.
Um I do like how you can swap in and distract right away. Um with that distraction, it has 4100 HP, so it's gonna be able to take a hit.
Yeah.
Um and then it really just has a really good kit for almost any situation. Um it can pin down a dinosaur that you might not want to let go, that you want to get rid of from your opponent. It can nullify with the dodge buff coming. It will be able to nullify
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the dinosaurs that it that they didn't really use before, like Proceratops and Mimus didn't really use evasive stance. Now it's going to, so that will come in handy. Distracting for the choppers and stuff, and then it's got a way to exit the game without taking damage. Against Dio Roger or Trico, that swoop can come in real handy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good combination with um, Nemesis, Monostego, anything that could stun. Uh, it's just I really like where it's at right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely got better this patch, and again, uh, I keep on saying this patch because nothing changed this. Well, I wouldn't say nothing changed, but just keep on forgetting like we got this mid patch thing, small patch. So I guess I'll have to refer to 1.9 last patch now. But anyways, Vex. I mean, you come in 129 speed, immune, distract, swoop. Like you could, sometimes you could just throw it in just to distract and then swoop right out of there. Like, and that would be fine depending on who you got in the next slot, right? So it's got a lot of interesting stuff, but again, a few things still do hurt it as well. One being a lot of the immune stuff, and it's relatively low base damage for. I mean, like usually stuff with this low base damage just have like a rampage or whatever, and this doesn't. It's just two impacts, which again, not terrible. Much better than before, but still, if you're relying on it to do damage, it doesn't do that, and it's not here to do that, right? So it's more of a niche character. I think it's really RNG reliant. Depends on what your opponent throws out. Depends on what's in the next slot, right? A lot of times. So if you really get a good setup with it, if you're lucky, you get something good on the next slot, like a Thylacotator or Drake Sarah or whatever. This is gonna be pretty fun. If you got like a Thylacotaurus in the next slot, you probably don't want to swoop it, right? So again, quite RNG reliant, but got much better. So it's making progress, Tera Vexes. So moving on, Smylocephalosaurus. So 3,690 HP, 1.5k damage, 127 speed, 5% crit, no armor, evasive strike, a deliberate prowl, a precise pounce, rampage and run, swap and stun, and immune to stuns. So this thing got much better this patch, right? Especially with the buff on evasion, so that's gonna help it for the most part, right? And like overall, like it does what it does. Comes in decently high speed. Got 2 rampages, 1.5k base damage. The only thing, 127 speed kind of sucks. Not gonna lie, 127 speed. Come on, we're almost 2020. 127 speed's not really gonna cut it, but it does have some stuff going for it. You got deliberate prowl, so you could maybe find ways around it against faster dinos, right? Or maybe even just evasive strike to survive a bit longer with that low HP. But if you're facing something that's slower than you, you're gonna do a lot of damage. Precise bounce rampage run. That's 6,000 damage in 2 turns. Also got that swap and stun, which can be decently handy in certain scenarios, right? If you got something to run into this, that would be fun, right? So like if something impacts and runs into this thing, and you pull off the swap and stun, and then you go for a precise pounce on turn 1, 3k damage, you will very likely kill a dino. So that's always good. So anyways, Smalocephalus, Tim.
Yeah, it getting that immune to stun really helped it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, stunning dinos are kind of dying off. So that it's a nice buff, but at the same time, it wasn't really needed. What it needs is immune to slow,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because everything that can slow, so everything that's faster than it is basically gonna win. Everything that has slow and is slower than it is more than likely going to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's its biggest downfall. That's always been the Smilo family tree's biggest downfall. But it does have really good synergy, having that swap and stun and that really big hitting move, Rampage and Run. And combine it with Dilacator, Dracocera, whatever. It can swap and stun, uh, deliberate prowl, so it'll cleanse itself, and then it can rampage and run back out. For does did what did the dodge rate go up to on deliberate prowl?
Deliberate prowl. Give me 2. I think they should be all the same, no? Let's see.
75.
Deliberate prowl. Yeah, 75%. Yeah.
Okay,
It's only long
so it
step
has
and
two.
or long dodge and side step.
Okay,
That's what I
okay.
know.
So 275% dodging move. One that does 1,500 damage, and another one that increases this critical damage by 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So if you deliberate prowl into one of these rampage and runs, or precise pounce, that's 4,500 damage right there.
Mm-hmm.
That, well, not 45. What is that? Like 30, 3750 or something like that.
No, it is 45.
Well, it's only 1.25.
Oh yeah, it's 1.25 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something
So
like that.
I think it's 3750 for that. That's a big hit on any dino.
Right.
And then combining that with a possible Dracocera coming in, 2,400 damage, that's gonna kill about every dino that's relevant but 2. For the most part. Like it has its wins, it has its losses. The biggest thing is the meta that can slow. So it does what it does as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, basically touch on all of it. Spirit Strike, basically obliterates this thing, right? Unless you kind of go dodge or whatever. But yeah, kind of sad. Like anything with Spirit Strike Rampage with its HP, it's kind of yikes for Smalaceth. So moving on, Spontaceous. Spontaceous, I mean it's in an interesting position, right? It did get that crit impact buff, which is really really nice, but the wound. which was supposed to be great, kind of got screwed with the immune stuff, right? I mean, it still does what it does well. If you want to bleed a Dio, bleed a Trico, bleed one of those guys, or just come out with a big crit impact with that 129 speed, right? It does decent damage on turn one, and then turn two, you could just swoop out of there if you could get something good to swap in after it. It makes good for a good team player, right? It just doesn't have what it used to have before, which when immunity wasn't as prevalent in the meta as it is now. It doesn't have that, if I can't beat it, I could take it down with me kind of mentality anymore. But it's still decent. The health could be better, but I mean, what can you do? It's 129 speed. So, Tim.
Yeah, I mean it's been on a downhill spiral for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
The critical impact was nice, but that it doesn't, unlike Utah Sinnoh, that damage isn't gonna be enough to kill anything it needs to. Um, was it 2588
8.
damage, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it 20% crit on bleeding moves isn't really that effective anymore. It I don't like where this Dino's position's at. It can come in, kill off just like Thyroid Taylor. It can kill. It can wound something that your sauropods might not like to face. Like you said, Trico, Deoraja, Gripalith, something along that level. But
Gripe
other
regens,
than
though.
that, yeah, double bleed.
Uh-huh.
But it does what it does. It's in a tough position right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go. Okay, moving on. Segodius. Man, Segodius. I mean, Segodius isn't really in a terrible position, honestly. I think it's been moving up ever since it hit rock bottom, but still not relevant enough to really warrant any, too much use. 5.4k HP, 1.1k damage, 107 speed, 5% crit, 30% armor, Spirit Strike, Agamizer, short defense, rampage. It's still classic Segodius. So I mean, I I wouldn't. I really just wouldn't use Segodius anymore. Like, um, what the heck are you gonna use it for? Like, sure, Earldom, Dialogue Cars, but like Dialogue Cars isn't that relevant. Rennick, same thing, right? Like, I guess the only reason why you'd probably put this in is just to fight Earldom,
Have a tank.
I guess. Like, it really doesn't do much. I mean, it's of all the classic tank builds. Um, it's still one of the better ones. I mean, a lot of HP, 30% armor, right? And short defense, rampage with 1.1k damage. It just gets like 107 speed. Come on, come on. It's gonna get obliterated by all the other chompers and stuff. So kind of unfortunate, but what can you do, right? So, Tim.
Yeah, I mean it's a meat shield at this point. You can put it on a team, and it'll do what you need it to do. It'll do some damage to whatever you need it to do damage to, but it's not gonna do anything spectacular. It I think it was like a level 25 or 26 Gemini Titan Maximus, or equal to a level 30 Stegodeus. Um, so I mean it needs quite a bit more levels than the two better tanks ahead of it. But if you're looking for an easy early game tank to get you up to that level before you start working on the twin towers, Stego is your girl to get there. Like it's easy to make. It
Mm-hmm.
has a fairly good move set. Its damage output isn't horrible for a tank, and it has really good bulk, 5400 health along with 30% armor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it can come late game and do a decent job at cleaning up. It can't you can use it early game for when you're gonna be fighting those speedsters. Um, but other than that, it it's just a meat shield at this point.
Yeah. Oh well, it's too bad. Moving on to the other tank on this tank. This is very the definition of tank is very loose because the next one we're going to talk about, Tragedisys has like no health, but it does have 40% armor. So there we go. Anyways, 3,990 health, 1,000 damage, 124 speed, 5% crit, 40% armor, Spirity Strike, Rampage, long invincibility, greater swing strike, and minimal counterattack. So this used to be really, really good. Tragedisys used to be one of the better legendaries in the game, and the meta just kind of screwed it over. Like, I think honestly, the immune to stuns thing is probably the biggest hit to Tragedisys because it used to be so that 124 speed, rampage, stun, rampage. That's a lot of damage, and now with a lot of immune to stun dinos. It used to actually do really decent against Indoraptor, but Indoraptor is immune to stun now, so they can't really do much against it, or as much against it as you could before, right? So, I mean, if you're facing something that's not immune to stuns, like even if it's a chomper, like a slower chomper, you could still stun rampage, or not stun rampage, rampage stun rampage. That's still a lot of damage against a chomper, right? But it just, the stun thing kind of hurts it.
Yeah, I think again the immunity it needed it survived in a speedster meta. The fact the lower HP combined with its long invincibility, they weren't able to get through and hit it for a lot of damage. It lost a lot of its combos, being able to rampage, stunned into superiority strike to gain the momentum back to rampage again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, everything just it's not in a good position either. Um, it too many immune dinos, too many top of the line chompers, not enough speedsters for it to pick on. Um, Relatively low health, especially since Maxima can get through that. Tenontorex, Trico, Dioraja's counter, um, Thoradalasaur, they can all just completely eat through that health. So it's in a tough position. It's not something I personally would go for it in the early game because it's not too. I mean, it is kind of easy to make, but it
Depends on where you
Stay
live.
God is yeah, Stay God is just it's easier to make, and then it does a better job in this meta.
Yeah. So poor thing. Moving on to Tormalock, the only one that got changed itself, aside from the dodge changes, on this list. So Tormalock, for those of you who don't know, lost like 30 damage, got I think immune to stuns, and impact and run is now rampage and run. So that's a decent size buff for Tormalock. So yeah, I mean 4.5k or 4.8k health now, still 126 speed. 5% crit, no armor, Spirity Strike, slow impact, greater stunning rampage, and now rampage and run with a medium counter attack. I mean, in a vacuum, it's pretty decent, but again, with a lot of the other stuff, the meta is not that kind to it, right? I mean, it's got some okay-ish matchups, like when you're fighting, say, Tenontorex, it does decent against it. Although it's kind of a guessing game on turn one, right? But still, it still does what it does. You could, even if you don't, if you don't win a matchup, you could do decent amount of damage and then get the heck out of there, right? Now it has 2 rampages, so that's what 4.8 something. Okay, it's over 4,000 damage for just a Greater Sunny Rampage and Rampage and Run, right? As for the speed, 126 speed, it's okay. With slow impact, you could get a revenge kill theoretically, and then just have Greater Sunny Rampage and Run up. So you could always do that, I guess. So I mean, again, it would have been better, much more better if we were still in a speedster meta. But again, that ship has sailed, and it's still around here. So there we go.
Yeah, you pretty much said it all. It kind of reminds me a lot of Dallarana, except for the fact it has slowing impact
Mm-hmm.
instead of having a distraction move. Um, it has fairly decent damage output, having a medium counter attack on it, although that's kind of irrelevant to what it does. It's
Right.
just gonna throw the opponent, stun, and then run. So it's only gonna get most of the time one counter attack off, anyways, maybe two. Um, but it does have good speed. It has pretty good um, it has pretty good bulk to combine with that. Um, which is what made it good to
Mm-hmm.
begin with.
Right.
Um, but other than that, it's suffering the same fate as just about every dino down here. And the meta's immune, so there goes most of its additional abilities on its attack. Um, but yeah, it's the rampage and run definitely helps a lot. It gains what about 500 more damage on that, so it's it's a decent buff, but it's not enough to go up a tier, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, it got better. It only needs to, wait for a more, I guess, easier meta for it to actually strive in. So, anyways, moving on to the last one on this list, Tyrannolophosaur. Tyrannolophosaur, 4.2k health, 1,640 damage, 108 speed, 20% crit, no armor, null strike, tracking strike, defense shard impact, defense shard rampage. Tyrannolophosaur is just basically worse Rex. I mean, Security Strike is much more better. But although, in this patch with all the dodge buffs, that does make nullifying strike a bit more valuable, right? I mean, it's a rare 1,640 damage null strike, right, in the game, for what it does. I guess the biggest L for it in comparison to Tenotorex is just the distracting strike versus distracting impact. Distracting impact just much more better. But overall, also another big L, 108 speed versus 109. That's pretty big as well. But everything else is it's a mini Tyranitar so most people aren't going to use this in the end game. Most people getting Tyrannolophosaur is just to get Tyranitar in the future. So it is what it is. So, anyways, Tim, last one.
Yeah, it kind of likes this meta being slower and all, but it that 108 speed just it really hurts it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The meta is basically sitting around that 109 to 115 speed. So it is getting outsped things that shouldn't be outsped, but it's going to do what it's going to do. It has a chance to it has a little bit of versatility with being able to distract as a chomper, which is nice, especially if you go second, you can distract them and then go for a rampage, which is nice. And then like you said, nullifying strike with dodging becoming more prevalent in this meta now. It could be a nice one hit, get rid of that evasive stance, so your next dino can come in and finish the job type of deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Again, with the 108 speed, kind of sucks. Like unlike Tyranitar has Superior Strike with it, right? Which is one of its biggest selling points, and it just doesn't really have that. So again, A tier, not terrible, but I just got a call. But what can you do? Trial officer. So there we go. That's all we got for A tier. Again, with the 1.10 patch, not too much changed in terms of rankings. But you know, certain dinos got a bit better. Certain dinos got a bit worse. Got us, you know, Arden and Maxima. Again, what were they thinking? So, yeah, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, thanks to Temerity for actually joining me here again. So, what's next? So, A minus tier would be next, obviously. So, again, thank you guys for watching. Like, enjoy this video, subscribe to the channel for some more Jurassic World content. I'll see you guys in the next one.